Are you ready for Season 3 of Discography? We're jumping into the deep end of The Who. Not only will we go through every Studio Who album in great detail, but their story is often told between albums, so we'll be touching on non-album singles, the solo works of Keith Moon, John Entwistle, Roger Daltrey, and Pete Townsend, and some of the events that would make a record begin as a concept and land as something that would universally change the world. Discography returns to Consequence Podcast Network in January of 2019. Until then, be lucky.
Consequence Podcast Network.
Hey, welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith With. It's an audio interview series presented by WFPK Independent Louisville at WFPK.org. Consequence of Sound and the Consequence Podcast Network. Before we get started, make sure to hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening from right now. You might be checking us out on Spotify or YouTube, Apple Podcasts and iTunes. Anywhere you get your podcast from, you can hit that subscribe button. We put out interviews every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at Consequence of Sound, and would love to keep you up to date on all of those. I'm Kyle Meredith. Today, my guest is Jenny Lewis. She is always one of my all-time favorite people to talk to, especially when she's got a brand new record out, and that she does. We're going to be talking about the new record, On the Line, which we got to catch up a little bit with last summer in 2018. So I've got some questions from that interview that were sort of left with an ellipses, and we're going to get those answers as well. Plus, do you know the band that's on this record, the folks backing her up? Ringo Star, Benmont Tench, Beck, Don Was, Jim Keltner. That it's massive, and she's going to tell us what that experience was like. We're going to talk about some of the songs like Red Bull and Hennessy and Heads Are Gonna Roll, Little White Dove, and then all the things beyond the record. She's going to go on tour with Death Cab this summer. Will there be a chance for some Postal Service songs? I'm going to ask that one as well. And did you know that she's on the new Vampire Weekend? In fact, one of the first singles they put out of this new record, the song 2021, you can hear her on. So we'll get that story as well. There's a lot happening. It's Kyle Meredith with Jenny Lewis.
Hey, Kyle.
How you doing?
Pretty good.
A most excellent way to start this out. Already with the bonus points. It's great to talk to you again.
Great to talk to you again.
I did want to tell you, I think this is the very first interview that I used a recent interview of my own to do the research on, because you and I just talked a little bit, at the last summer at the Forecastle Festival.
We sure did.
And
You're always the first person I talk to, it seems.
Is that right? I'll take that. Well, I thought, that almost makes this incestuous research is what I'm calling it this time around. So that's the first for me as well. I'll say though, while we were talking last summer, I asked you. I said you've been hashtagging these words on the line, and is it your album title? And you played very coy with me because you had to or wanted to. I don't know, but it turns out that's the album title. I was on the right track.
That is the album title, and I don't know if I was being coy with you or if I hadn't arrived at an album title.
So not completely.
Typically the last part of the process for me, because it's hard to kind of encapsulate the feeling of 10 or 11 songs with a title. So that's always the last step for me. So I think at that time I was playing with it to see if I liked the way that it looked and felt.
All right. So I'll ask now then, what is it about those three words that speak for these, 10, 11 tracks?
Well, I think people will have their own ideas about that as they hear the record. But for me, there are many different meanings on the line, just when someone's got your heart on the line and you're just waiting. Also the idea that being sort of on the line between two versions of yourself, being a woman, a professional woman, making sacrifices for your work and your art, and sort of being on the line, that's the brink of your mortality. And I mean, there's so many, and then there's the obvious, just, hanging on the line.
Well, I was going to say, I think you had told me at that point also that you were an old phone collector. So there was also a bit of a sort of a literal side to it as well.
I do. I collect old rotary phones, and I still have a landline, which I'm speaking to you from at my house in Los Angeles. I think I'm one of the few people that still has an active landline. And let me tell you, It sounds good.
It sounds beautiful. You're coming in so crystal clear.
It's analog.
Analog, man. Well, let's get into this record then. I mean, there's so many great things to talk about it. Of course, you did it in the legendary Capitol Studio B, and the lineup is mind-blowing. And I'll name some of the names here, too. Ringo Star, Benmont Tench, Beck, Jim Keltner, Don Was. I mean, this is the band. How did this happen? This has to be such the experience.
Yeah. This is the band. I've never made a record like this before. I put together bands for each of my solo records, and that's part of the joy of being a solo artist. You really get to work with whoever you reach out to. And I've been really lucky to play with some amazing people in the past. Jonathan Wilson, Blake Mills, so many great musicians. But this group was next level. I mean, just based on the fact that I think all of them, or almost all of them, have played with Bob Dylan, which is mind-blowing.
Right.
And they're all on your favorite rock and roll songs, and you don't even know it. Jim Keltner is the heartbeat of rock and roll. I mean, he played with John Lennon. So to get all of these men in the room together, it was just fascinating just listening to them chat. But then to have them contribute to your songs, it was just unbelievable. Yeah. And they were really listening. Keltner would come up to me after a take and say, "Wow, man." He's like, "We're just, cruising along, and there's that melody." And then he's like, and then you're like, "Wow, did she just say that?"
I mean, at any point, do you have to kind of set aside the legacy of what's in the room and focus on the song? Did you ever have to have that moment?
Well, I knew I had to have my songs finished before I went in the studio, and that's all I had control over. I knew my songs were done and they were ready to be presented. Beyond that, I was just trying to not totally freak out and be super nervous. I had to breathe through a couple of moments before cutting the songs. But really, I think those guys don't get to make records like that all the time anymore. Mm-hmm. It's really rare that you record live in a room like that. That's not really how we record. So I think it was exciting and enticing to play live.
You told me that last summer in that interview that you never get invited to the good parties where all the famous people are, and I think now's a good time to call bullshit on that one a little bit.
Yeah, I guess that was the best party of all.
That's right. And I'll bring up one more thing that I wanted to ask about that one, because you said there were a lot of mentors for this record, and maybe you were talking about these folks right here, but if there were more, who were the other mentors for this record?
Well, this record was a process, and it took a couple of years. And I started it at Capitol. We spent about 5 days there, and then I worked on it relentlessly after that. So that was about 2 years ago. We were at Capitol. Don Was, who played bass on most of the record, he was incredibly helpful. But then ultimately, Beck came in and really helped me. He really mentored the record. I was at a point where I didn't know how to finish it by myself. I really was kind of in the weeds with it, and he stepped in, and we ended up recording 3 new songs that I had written together with that band. But just overall, his presence was really, really helpful. And then the mixer, Sean Everett, mm-hmm. who's an incredible mixer here in Los Angeles, he was able to separate from the sessions and the legends, and then he took it in a completely different sonic direction. So this is live music in the room, but then through Sean's prism, which is very modern. Mm-hmm. And in the mix room, we were listening to a lot of hip hop at the time, so that ended up informing the mix, which is so cool to me.
Right,
it's not like a straight singer-songwriter record. I mean, it is in the way that we cut it, but there's this whole other layer. I mean, this record went through so many different prisms, so many different people. It took a whole community of people to get it done.
And I do love the songs, especially the ones you've released so far. And I may be pulling a thread here that doesn't actually exist, but just judging even from the song titles, I said, Red Bull and Hennessy says something as a song title, and then Party Clown and Wasted Youth. I mean, it seemed like there's definitely some kind of theme happening around there.
It's your girl. I'm a party clown. What can I say?
But
what can I say except I don't recommend that as a cocktail recipe. It's a song title, so keep that in mind.
Right. But it does play that side of things, whereas you might be talking about, I guess there's some levity to it. I mean, on the other side of it, I know that, some of this, I think, as I've read anyway, has to do with a breakup. Your mom also passed away, and that was I know, a big part of it. I mean, one of the songs comes from that, right? Little White Dove?
Yeah, that one I wrote. And it always feels so weird talking about this stuff. It's so personal. It's like, this is my life. This is like the stuff that went down. But I can't help but put it into my work. That's how I survive, and that's my inspiration. But then when we have these interviews, it's like, oh, God, I'm like talking about my mother who passed. But it's true. It's all true. She was very sick, and I would write this song every day, visiting her in the hospital, in the hallways, and in my car, in the parking lot. I was too afraid to get out of the car, and standing by her bedside, and our relationship was very complicated, but that song really helped me get through that period, which is a testament to the magic of music. Mm-hmm. How magical that I can have that to lean on and then put out into the world, and hopefully it can be of service out in the universe.
Well, to stick with that darker subject, I guess, it was also an interesting time because Tom Petty had just passed away, and there you had Benmont in the studio as well. I mean, was that felt? Was that, a heavy experience in itself? Was it noticeable?
It was. Well, you could feel it. You could feel the energy. I mean, and music is energy. And you're in the room. It's on there, man. It's on those tracks. Yeah, you could feel it. But that's life. Right. This is what we do. We play music. Yeah. And hopefully we're lucky enough to play music first of all, so we don't have to have day jobs. That's like my whole goal in life. And then we get to play it with our friends and mentors and heroes, and it helps us get through the tough stuff.
Well, I'll ask about something else entirely. With Heads Gonna Roll, these lyrics are very, very specific. I don't know if this is a character story or what, but when you're talking about a narcoleptic poet from Duluth,
it's true in that the feeling is true. Whatever you derive from the feeling of that song is true. Mm-hmm. It's about me, that song. The details aren't that important, but there's always a little truth in there.
I love it.
It's in there.
Yeah, no, it's one of my favorites.
People sometimes ask me, or I ask other songwriters, like, why do you write songs? I asked my friend, and he said, well, I write songs to get the attention of girls, or to get the attention of a girl. And he asked me, why do you write songs? And I said, for revenge.
For revenge? Wow. For revenge. You know what? You tweeted something recently, and you said retweet if you're emo as fuck. And I thought, what a nice follow-up to nice as fuck. And I wondered who would be in that band with you, especially considering what you just said right there.
Oh, well, you can only imagine. And that was so funny because I realized in that moment that you could really get people to retweet stuff if you tell them to retweet things.
Sure.
And I was trying to think of, like, the thing that was totally retweetable and, not offensive. But it's true. I am emo as fuck. I started in an emo band, and I'm not ashamed of that.
Nor should you be. Not at all. Speaking of other bands, I had to know, you're going to be hitting the road with Death Cab this summer, and it seems like that's perfect potential for some collaborating with Ben. Any chance whatsoever that we could possibly hear Postal Service songs while we're out there?
Well, I have always deferred to Ben on this subject, so we'll see. Ben is one of my closest friends, and he's always there for me. When I finish an album and I've got the mixes and I'm putting the album in order, I always send it to Ben first and ask him to put it in order for me. And he does it every time, and he's so thoughtful. And I really wish I had taken his advice on Acid Tongue, the album. He told me to put Acid Tongue first, which I think would have been really, really cool. He's always right. Ben is just always right. He's just like, I call him Dad. I'm like, Dad,
interesting
Help me out. I
relationship.
don't know what to do. And he's like, okay, I'll call you in 10 minutes.
I gotcha.
Thanks, Dad. I really needed that.
It's nice to have those folks in your life right there.
Oh, yeah, and we're on this journey together. You know, it's like we started out as kids in a band, in a van, and we've, like, managed to, like, maintain a career after 20 years. And, you know, there aren't that many of us who survived that. So it's so great to just have someone that I trust that can counsel me through these rock and roll moments.
How did you end up on the new Vampire Weekend record? Because you're on, what's the song? Oh, you're on 2021, right?
I am, yes. So this is a funny story. So a friend of mine left a keyboard in my garage after he played here in Los Angeles. And the keyboard belonged to Ariel Reichstad, who produced the Vampire Weekend record. Mm-hmm. And so I texted Ariel. I was like, hey, man, what do you want me to do with this keyboard? It's in my garage. He's like, all right, well, if you don't mind bringing it by. And so I brought it by, this big keyboard. I, like, schlepped it up the hill and dropped it off. And Ezra was in the studio, and they were finishing the Vampire Weekend record. And they said, hey, do you want to hear a couple songs from the record? I'm a huge Vampire Weekend fan. I was like, yes, please. And one song became, 20 or however many are on the record. And then Ezra was like, oh, hey, while you're here, would you mind singing this line for the record? I said, well, yeah, of course. So I just sort of off the cuff, in returning something, doing a favor for a friend, ended up on the new Vampire Weekend record.
Nicely done. Funny how those little moments work. It suddenly makes you look
like that.
Yeah, it suddenly makes you look even busier than you might be, just because you're now everywhere. You know, it's.
I know, it's funny how the timing of this works out, where it was really just like I, wanted to get this keyboard out of my garage.
I'll end because our mutual friends, the Watson twins, also had put out their record recently, and I didn't know. Did you get a chance to listen to that one? Of course
I did, and I think it's their finest album.
It's fantastic, and Rolling Thunder has to be one of the best singles they've done, I swear.
Oh man, they have I just feel like they've figured it out. Initially, they wrote separately and sang their own songs separately, which I also loved. But I think the unique thing about being a twin is that you've got like a clone. And so when you sing with yourself or your twin sister, it's this sound that no one else can duplicate. So it's just so special to hear them embracing their twinness. Twins are so funny. Like, I don't think when they became teenagers, they dressed alike. I think their mom probably dressed them alike when they were kids, but then when they became teenagers, they're like, well, we want to kind of like assert our sort of individuality. But to kind of go back to that formative state of being a twin and just letting that be the thing, because it's so amazing to watch them, and it's so amazing to be in the room with them, because they just, like, Chandra will come up to me and tell me a story and then walk away, and then 5 minutes later, Lee will come up to me and tell me the same exact story. And I'm like, I just got the lowdown from your sister. I got it.
Well, it was always really special what you all did musically with each other in the past, and of course, we're big fans of them. But I will also say, I really can't say enough good things about your new record as well. It's so good, Jenny. It really is.
Thank you, Kyle. It's so, you make something. Well, it takes years to get this stuff written and done, and I know I take a minute between records, but that's because I'm living my life and navigating through that, and then also it takes a minute to process. But it's scary once you have, you've been incubating something for so long and you put it out into the world, and it's just like a scary period before it's out there. But I feel so good I feel like it's a really pure record, and it is my soul music continued. So I hope people listen with open hearts.
Yeah. A perfect sentiment to end this interview on right there. It's always great talking to you. I really do appreciate it, and hopefully we'll see you around on the road.
Yes, thanks, Kyle, and we'll talk to you very soon, I'm sure.
All right, take care.
Thank you.
Always grateful to talk with Jenny Lewis. That new record is called On the Line. We talked a lot about the interview from last summer, and it's already in this series, but I'm going to go ahead and clip it on now for you diehard Jenny Lewis fans or folks who's just curious what in the world we were talking about with all of those moments. This is my interview with Jenny Lewis from the Forecastle Festival in 2018.
So I'm going to close my eyes while we talk.
Okay.
So I can pretend we're on the radio.
So pretend we're on the radio and we're on the phone. Because
you prefer doing interviews on the phone.
You know what? It's this paper right here. And I figured this out, by the way. It must be a manners type of thing, because I feel like when I'm talking with someone, I need to make the eye contact and all that. And when I'm in person, I can't look at my paper as much as I like to.
Don't worry about it. My eyes are closed.
Your eyes are closed. All right. Well, anyway, so last time you were here, there was an after party. Kevin Ratterman works with My Morning Jacket a lot. Yeah. And I saw you, but you were wearing a horse head mask. And that's
I was?
You were wearing a horse head mask. That can't be the first time you've done that. You look so natural doing it.
I don't know what you're saying, but I'm not into that sort of thing. But I don't recall. I do recall doing a duet with the dude from Cage the Elephant. Matthew.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that?
I don't remember.
Because they were sort of spontaneous.
Yeah, they kept it going the whole time. Yeah,
and so Jim was also there. Jim James playing saxophone for a long time. He ripped the sax, ripped it for that was like a 30-minute solo.
Yeah.
And then Matt and I sang a song that he wrote. That was a legendary night.
It's all recorded apparently. Every time they've done that.
That's right. They have it was all recorded. But I don't remember the horse mask.
There was just it was a horse. I don't know the story of it. When I walked in, because you and I had done a quick interview beforehand, and I walked in and I was like, oh, because of the outfit you were or whatever. It was like, there's Jenny Lewis now in a horse mask, whatever.
I was probably sipping that Reposados.
These are the days of our lives.
My favorite soap.
Is that the one?
That was the one, like on and off, where you'd come in 5 years later, it's like the same thing is going on, the same story.
I remember getting pulled into All My Children when I was like 12. I would watch like Gary Shandling, Tracy Ullman, All My Children.
Wow, All My Children is the wild card, and that
was the one. Got sucked into it, because you don't think you'll ever get sucked into a soap opera until you watch like 3 episodes, and then
you're in.
Did
you see the Gary Shandling documentary?
First part.
So good.
So I haven't done the second part yet, so I don't know how it ends.
You know. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. No, the
dead.
first part was fantastic. It was, yeah.
Oh, man. So really inspiring. The mentor part of it, I don't know if you've gotten there yet, but he's like always like mentored other comics. And
well, especially coming from, the Apatow eyes, the voice, the narrative of it, you kind of get that from the beginning. So,
but Apatow's so grateful and reverent, and it's so nice to see that relationship when it works.
Right.
Because when it doesn't work, it's like The Master, the movie. But that also works.
Yeah.
But that's such like an interesting dynamic, the mentor and the mentee. And the mentee often or always surpasses the mentor.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, it's just nice that somebody's waving the flag, the Gary Shandling flag. It's. I don't know that. I don't know. I mean, somebody had to make that. I don't know that it would have been made if it hadn't been for Apatow.
He defined that kind of style of TV comedy show.
Oh yeah, right.
He's like responsible for.
Did you have it? I'm totally asking the LA question here. Did you know him at all? Was there any run-ins in your careers?
No, but I think Ryan Adams was friends with him, and maybe he even like jammed at PAX Am. There's always weird people jamming at PAX Am, like Johnny Depp, who I've never met either. I don't get the call when the celebs are over.
Not when that's happening.
No.
But you have been there at PAX Am.
Yes.
Is that where you're working right now? Is that where you're recording?
No, I did the Voyager there, and we did a little bit for this record at PAX.
Yeah.
But then we went over to Capitol and recorded there in Studio B.
Ooh.
Legendary
Capitol, yeah. Is Ryan still a part of it, or was it just that little part there?
No, he's not, but yeah, I'm mixing with Sean Everett.
Right.
So Sean Everett is a great mixer and producer, and he recorded the War on Drugs record and mixed it, and mixed the Alabama Shakes record, and really has helped me understand the album that I'm making. And it's been so many people have mentored the album, and Sean is kind of like the last link in the chain to help me get it done and get it out there.
What's the issue? I mean, to realize the record.
Well, it's taken a minute. Just some shit happened. My mom passed away in on Friday the 13th in October.
Jeez.
And that was sort of like so things just kind of rolled out as life happens.
As life happens, yeah.
And I've had this album, throughout the whole process, and it's like evolved and become a version of itself that I'm really proud of. So.
Yeah. I don't want to go. I don't mean to take it to the dark place if you don't want to, but that was sort of part of the story of the last record too, wasn't it? Was your father? My
ex-boyfriend said to me when I started making this record, he's like, just be sure when you start talking about this record that you don't say that you wrote it in the hardest period of your life. He's like, because you say that every single time. I'm like, well, maybe it's true. Whatever.
Because the hardest period is always when you're right. Yeah. No, I'm sorry to hear that.
It was
yeah. I'm really sorry to hear that.
No, I think just art cycles, and so does just growing up.
Right. Well, I did get to hear a few of the songs, of course, on stage a minute ago. I don't know if that's representative of the full album or not. Obviously, I'm only getting a small slice. It does seem like a mellow record, if that's fair. The songs I heard.
I wouldn't say mellow.
Yeah.
Definitely not like spiritually mellow.
Well, again, first listens, I'm never really able to always pick up on everything. You're just trying to and it's live, and I was side stage on top of that, so it's like,
well, and it's new songs in a festival set before people know them,
right?
Which is always like a tricky thing to do, because you just want to play all your new shit because you think it's the dopest shit, but like no one really wants to hear new songs in a live setting. I
mean, I was able to sing along with, I don't remember now, but I was able to sing along with one of them by the end of it, so that's always nice. And there was something about South by Southwest too.
Oh yeah, there's a song called Party Clown that's a Faustian tale about South by Southwest.
Your own tale or someone else's?
It's everyone's tale.
Oh, okay.
We're just chasing our own tails.
Because that's
endlessly.
Yeah, that's a mess over there.
I'm chasing tails. I'm chasing tails. Tail.
I'm trying to figure out what that means.
Tail.
That's all. Yeah. Chasing tail is different than chasing tails.
I'm chasing. That should be my epitaph.
Yeah.
Chasing tails.
Chasing tails. Always on there.
So mellow. I wouldn't say mellow.
Okay. All right.
But I'm deep in it. I don't know how to.
I'll figure it out when I get there.
It.
No, and nor should you.
Hear that shit.
I would love to. Get it out there, and I will.
I'm trying.
Does On the Line mean anything for this record? Is that something? Yeah, I've seen the hashtag around. There's a phone on stage. I think there's something in the one of the pictures too.
That hashtag.
Well, is it for any reason? Am I sleuthing here, or just is this a dead end?
Sometimes I just start shit from my Twitter, just for my own. To like help the process along. So yeah, I was the one that made the On the Line hashtag. There aren't many retweets.
Well, when we're looking to grasp at anything, suddenly it's like, it's a clue. And there's a phone on stage.
Right.
You're messing with our heads.
I wish someone had called me up there tonight. That would have been so nice.
Is it a rotary phone? Can someone...
Yeah, I collect phones. I have for years.
Yeah.
Just like at antique malls, I get rotary phones. So I was like, maybe I'll just bring them on stage, because they're just sitting in my house. And I do have a landline, so I use one of them.
Still listed in the phone book?
Hope not.
All right, well, I'll quit reaching here for the new album as much until we can actually hear it. But I do want to ask about a few of the other things. So the most recent thing, of course, we heard from you was Nice as Fuck. It put you back in a band environment. I mean, well,
sure
I don't know if that's fair to say, because you have a band in your solo life. But was that different? Was that?
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah, because Tennessee is one of my best friends, and it happened really naturally and sweetly. I moved to New York, and she had a shop in the East Village called the Deep End Club, and I would just go there every day and hang out with her and just kind of loiter in her shop. And she's a great drummer, and her dad is also a great drummer, Pete Thomas. He plays with Elvis Costello, has for many years. And so I kind of schemed a plan with Pete, her dad, to get her playing drums again, because she had kind of taken a little break. So we set up a flat drum kit for her in her shop, and I got a mic, and then we asked our friend Erica to come and play bass with us, and we were just a shop band and just kind of jamming in her shop, and then like people would wander in and like try to buy a t-shirt. And she'd be like, "Oh, get out of here."
But
so yeah, but then, it was like a fully democratic band experience, you know.
Well, I'm going to use that
awesome.
word. You said democratic because you made your live debut during the Republican National Convention, the RNC. I think it was on Colbert. At least that's the first time we saw you. And I thought...
Well, our first actual show... So we wrote a bunch of songs in the shop. And then my friend Matt Ward, M. Ward, was in town. And I was like, come by the Deep End Club. And so he came over to just see us and say what's up. And saw us play our little pieces of songs. And he's like... I want you to open up for me on tour this summer, or like in the 3 months from then. And so because Matt asked us, we had to get our shit together and make a record and have stuff to play on tour opening for. So we opened for Matt, but we made a pact to only play on the floor. So NAF always set up on the floor of the venue with the crowd around us.
Oh, wow.
And the crowd on the stage.
Yeah.
So opening for Matt, he let us set up on the floor, and yeah, pretty fun.
That's cool. Well, yeah, but that's what I was thinking is, oh, here they are, a band born out of an era. And I guess I was tying that more to the Colbert Show and all that stuff. And I don't know, I just started looking at it, and the timelines worked out with so many different things. I mean, beyond the, the nice as fuck, you put you in a band, I thought, according to whatever notes I'm finding online, Rilo Kiley's turning 20, which is the last band. And I don't know if that 20 means anything at this point, or if that's really the date or anything like that.
20, yeah,
20.
that means a lot.
98.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You're the timekeeper. I didn't know.
I like anniversaries. 90, let me tell you, so 98.
Time is somewhat irrelevant.
In art?
Or it's non-linear.
Yeah. We time travel a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's sort of a different thing altogether, but...
Like, Rilo Kiley is happening right now simultaneously on another zone.
Someone else.
In the other simulation, or the other level of the game.
Right. It's still happening.
It's still happening.
Or it's re-happening or something like that.
But 20 years is a long time.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I don't know the significance, except that I'm, 42 now.
Well, there's such an accolade that came out of that. Yeah, because Rolling Stone just named Portion for Foxes one of the greatest songs of the century.
Why do you think I played it today?
I heard it. Well, I didn't know. I don't know that you always played or not.
No, I saw that thing. Someone tweeted it at me, and I was like, "Damn, that's so cool." So we learned it. I haven't really played that too much. I played it once with Blake from Rilo Kiley at Coachella, but yeah. I
mean, I don't know. What is that? The news comes through. Lists are lists, and and whatever. But
there's not much activity over there. It's like I see it if it comes in.
I guess what I'm saying is, in the world that we play in, the sandbox that we play in, rock and roll, and the canon of rock and roll and the history, and how we lift songs out, how we put songs on pedestals, artists on pedestals. This is talked about
Y'all
in
like
that
lists.
Fucking yeah,
Y'all
we love
like
lists.
You know what I mean? Like, people want to make a list, and it's very tidy.
Yeah.
This is the best of the best.
But I'm sure you've got your
Light
songs.
in the Attic?
Light in the Attic.
Just records that weren't recognized that are fucking awesome.
You're talking about the record label that puts all this stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
okay.
those reissues. Were this genius record. No one
Right.
heard it in 1973, but here you go, hipsters. Enjoy. We
You go,
eat it up.
hipsters.
It's like Ted Lucas. We're like, yes. So I do, and I do so appreciate being on a list. That's so very nice.
Yeah, it's a hell of a song. It's still a great song.
I thought it would feel young, like the angsty, like that. But it really works for anything. It doesn't have to be like a romantic thing. Because I'm always rethinking when I'm performing stuff, what it means.
Oh, yeah.
You got to find the thing that still is honest or something.
And they change.
Yeah. So that is surprisingly, it felt like, oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I will bring up one more for the timekeeper then, because you said Costello. It was 10 years ago that you and Costello traded licks. You were on his record. He was on Acid Tongue. Acid Tongue turns 10. And what a great record that is, because I got to go back and I sort of just wanted to know what you remembered about that, because you see Fernando sounded great. It was like this looser, cool record with the idea of Silver Lake at its peak. The Brooklyn of the West Coast. It was a thing happening.
Yes, it was. And we were living in Silver Lake. And, it was a really, really fun record to make. And I shot a documentary. Or not we just shot everything we recorded. So I have this documentary that I actually screened before my tour during the Acid Tongue era. Like, that was the opening act, the making of the record, but it was like too soon to see the making of the record and then like watch the band playing it.
Well, it's a nice concept. I get it.
Yeah,
it's a cool concept.
I feel like now it's more interesting to watch something that's 10 years old.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to put that out at the 10-year mark, which is soon, right?
It's soon.
When is it? Like,
I don't know.
do you know?
I didn't do that.
You know all this.
I didn't do that far. No, I didn't.
What's the date, sir?
August 24th. I don't know.
When are we?
When are we? What is
when
today?
Are we?
Right now, Rilo Kiley is playing in our backyard, forever and ever. Right now, it's a Van Halen song. It's I like that song. That song gets shit on a lot.
Wait, which one?
Right Now.
Oh, why does
now? Hey.
That song's great.
It's great.
Nothing wrong with that song.
Yeah, I'll tell that to anybody else.
I guess Van Halen people, but why? Fuck with Van Halen. There's like way worse shit out there.
There's
Van
the other
Halen's
one.
great.
I mean, there's the Gary Sharon record. You can hear. Poor Gary Sharon.
Who's Gary Sharon?
He was the third Van Halen singer. The late '90s one. That's the one you hate on.
Oh, is that the song?
No, that's still the second one. But there was another singer. I don't know what this is not going to make the airing. This is
why people want to hear this.
They probably do.
They don't want to hear boring.
No,
dates.
we'll keep it.
No offense.
Well, there went my entire thread. No,
I do find myself on tour and playing festivals where people like to talk about tour dates and stuff, and like the only conversation that happens is like, and then I was down in Houston, and then we went up to, and you're just like, oh God, please.
I try not to ask that.
I don't care where I'm going.
You know what I found interesting outside? Because it was a lot of times in these, the bands don't get to mix. They don't know each other, or it's too hot and they all stay in their trailers, whatever. But it was the folks from the War on Drugs and His Gold Messenger and
Phil Cook.
Phil Cook was out there. Yeah, I saw Phil.
So cool.
Yeah, Phil's got a new single out, new record, I guess.
Oh,
but,
he's great.
But they were all out there, and Adam from War on Drugs walks up and he's talking with the lead singer of His Gold Messenger. I'm dropping his name. It's initials. But first thing he says, like, hey man, so when are you gonna make a new record? And I thought, man, that's the questions I ask, and they're asking that, and I don't feel so bad now because I always feel like it's like it's the music talk. But it's what I always appreciate about you, because the last time we talked, you sort of
spilled the beans.
No,
surely.
No, you're good about pushing me away from the usual. We were talking about, and I don't think we ever finished this, about what happens in your late 30s when you sort of go a little bit crazy. You sort of.
What happens in your early 40s when you are still going a little crazy?
You're only a few years ahead of me. You're only 3 or 4 years ahead of me. So it's I'm asking you. You know, that's what I was doing. I was like, what's going to happen to me in like 3 years?
I would say one thing: the road narrows.
It's a riddle.
No, it just narrows. There are like less things
Yeah.
that work. It's like you, I think, have to be on somewhat of a spiritual quest in order to be happy, right? Like, I feel like alcohol, like, stuff works, but it doesn't like fully work. So you got to be in the mode of like working on shit.
How's it going?
Helping out a little bit, just a little bit. Is this too hippy dippy?
No, it's not at all. Because what I was thinking is, you've got a, you're in sort of a lifestyle that allows you time. I guess there's a luxury of time. What you do with that time is sort of up to you, because there's a lot of waiting around. And I don't know, there's the between albums thing when you're not on tour. What are you doing with your personal life?
Oh, nothing.
How are you doing
Just
to make you feel better? What do you?
Just no discipline.
That's what I'm getting at, though. I mean, I see what you mean, because if you've only got so many choices, to me it would seem like those are the moments that you get to.
Well, and I think the road
that.
narrows the older you get, and you just, you kind of have to deal with stuff, right?
I don't know. I'll let you know that you're right when I get there. And at this point,
you'll see.
Sure. I trust you. All right, I can't wait to hear the actual studio versions of this record. I really can't. I'm looking so forward to it.
I wouldn't call it mellow, okay?
I won't call it mellow.
Until you hear it, and then if you think it's mellow, that's cool.
It's unfair. I just heard some songs up there. I shouldn't.
I mean, it's not like Sleep. It's not like metal.
I see that I've struck a nerve with the word mellow.
No. Shit, maybe it is fucking mellow.
Maybe it's not. I don't know.
Maybe it is.
Well, maybe it is.
Maybe it is, Kyle.
What's
Maybe
wrong
it is
with it?
mellow.
Yeah, what's wrong with mellow?
Right.
If it's a good song, it's a good song, right?
Yeah, what's my problem with mellow?
What's your problem with mellow?
Why am I insecure about mellow?
Yeah. What are you afraid of? It's like, oh, what a nice mellow record this is.
I think it's easier to rock and, like, it's easier. It's like a go-to thing to rock because you can, like, fill the space with noise and, like, at a festival especially, like, you rock, rock, rock. But we did one song today from Rabbit Fur Coat, that song Happy. So mellow.
So mellow.
And I feel like it was such a nice respite.
Yeah.
But it is difficult as a live performing artist just to, like, a live performing artist. That sounds so pretentious. Just playing shows to balance, like, the mellow with the rockers.
I mean, it worked out there.
I have a hang up about it.
It struck a nerve. We'll see. We'll see when it gets here.
I mean, I don't think Party Clown is mellow, but I mean.
Well, since you don't know or won't tell me
mellow.
when this will be out, I'll know when it happens. That's fine. You
Yeah.
know, so that's cool. All right, that's it. We're good.
Bye.
I got nothing else. It is Jenny Lewis backstage at Forecastle Festival in Louisville, Kentucky, 2018. And again, her new record is called On the Line. Always grateful. Big thank you to Jenny Lewis for that call today. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. You made it this far. You might as well listen to all the other interviews that we put out, whether you're checking us out on YouTube, on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Hit the subscribe button. After that, you can head over to WFPK.org. That's where I do a show every Monday through Thursday from noon to 3 Eastern, where you can also find some bonus episodes of this series over there. ConsequenceOfSound.net has all of your music and film news needs. You can find me at Twitter at Kyle Meredith, Facebook /Kyle Meredith. That does it for another edition. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.
Consequence Podcast Network.